First topic of polity and constitution is simultaneous elections. As the name itself suggests, simultaneous elections. It is regarding the election of Lok Sabha and state assemblies to be voted for both on the same day. And simultaneous elections known was until 1967, when post 1970 there was a mismatch between the state assemblies and parliament, and elections were held separately. Later, the proposal was also given by the Election Commission in 1983 and also referred by Law Commission and Niti Aayog. Simultaneous election doesn't mean that voting across the country for Lok Sabha and state assemblies will be held on a single day, but it is regarding that if in any phase the simultaneous elections are held, then voting for both, that is Lok Sabha and state assemblies, will be done only on that day and not separately. Then there are some constitutional provisions related to simultaneous elections. Article 83 and Article 85 talks about Lok Sabha elections, that is there will be a term of 5 years for the Lok Sabha from the date of appointment for its first meeting, and President of India can dissolve the Lok Sabha on the advice of Union Cabinet. Similarly, Article 172 and 174 are there for the legislative assemblies of मतलब states के लिए. Then there will be a term of 5 years for legislative assemblies, and Article 174 similar for governor, that state assemblies can be dissolved on the advice of state cabinet. Then arguments in the favor of the simultaneous are that when there are separate elections, then most of the time moral code of conduct is applicable in that area, and therefore there is a governance deficit. Then separate elections also require huge expenditures as driven for the corruption and black money, and when separate elections are there, therefore expenditure also require double. Then engagement of the security forces and disrupting the public life is another problem. Then impact of social fabric, meaning that there is a sensitive issues like caste, religion and communal issues across the country. They arose time to time when separate elections are held. Then populist measures remain the focus, and immediate electoral gain remain focus rather than long-term policies, meaning that if separate elections are there, then immediate goal remain the immediate gain remain the focus for the parties. As you can see that if there are elections in the state of Uttar Pradesh, then central government of BJP will do policies, will come up with the policies which will benefit Hindus more for the Hindu vote bank politics. Then there is impact of voter turnout, and when there will be a simultaneous election, it will boost voter turnout. Then there are some argument against the simultaneous elections, meaning what will be the procedure in case of ruling party coalition loses majority before 5 years. Then this is a real problem, that if simultaneous elections are held and there is a no party government and coalition is formed, and there is a loss of majority before 5 years, then what will be the procedure? Because it will be a mismatch finally when there will be a no majority government. Then second is simultaneous election will require certain requirements such as extension of terms, amendment to the RPA, that is Representation of People's Act. Then post amendment there will be requirement of the ratification of the states. Then national and state issues are different, and therefore when there will be a simultaneous election, it will affect the states issues and more focus might be on the national issues. Then it go against the federalism, as when the when the elections in state is postponed until the synchronized phased, then president rule will have to be imposed in the interim period, meaning that if there is a loss of majority in any state that is no majority government, then president rule is the only option, and therefore it is against the federalism. Then simultaneous election may promote national parties. And in conclusion, it is said that simultaneous election cannot be Pennica, means it cannot be it cannot be a solution which doesn't have the points in against, and therefore other solution can be adopted, like looking at the restrictions of moral code of conduct and curbing the expenditure on the election and bringing political parties under RTI so that transparency can be bringing out. So these are the way forward for the simultaneous elections. Second topic of the Polity and Constitution is right to recall. It was regarding the Panchayati Act Second Amendment Bill 2020 of Haryana, which provides right to recall for the members of Panchayati Raj institutions. It gives the power to electorates to remove the elected officials before their expiry of term, and it allows the recall of village sarpanch and members of block level and district level panchayats if they fail to perform. To recall, 50% of members of ward or gram sabha have to give in return that they want to initiate proceedings. Then there is a procedure of secret ballot and requirement of two-third members majority to be voted against the elected member to remove from the office. Then what are the benefits of right to recall? It ensures the accountability. Then competition will increase, and as there is a lack of competence and ethics in representative, then it will check the corruption and provide an option to correct the wrong decisions as well. Then what are the limitations of it? Destabilize the government. Election fatigue means lower voter turnout when there will be elections again. Less number of voters will come out to vote. Then political tool, it could be misused. And then independence of representatives, as it would inevitably discourage the representative from using their own judgment. Then verification of authenticity of those signatures, which will be provided for the recall option. Then increase expenditure when there will be by-election. It will require expenditure again. Then what is the direct democracy? It enables the public to vote directly on the proposed constitutional amendment, law, treaty or public decision. What are the various instruments? There are 4 other instruments apart from recall. Referendum is one, then there is citizens initiative, then plebiscite, and then this agenda initiative. Then what could be the way forward for the recall option? The first one is the enhancing political awareness, means main focus should be on enhancing the political awareness of masses and on ensuring the better turnout of votes. Second is proper scrutiny. Third is strong deterrence, recall representative must be debarred from contesting by elections. Why they should be debarred from contesting re-elections or by elections? Because it will be it will be it will lead to the it will lead to as a money and muscle power, and it will be a contrast on others who will be contesting in elections. Third topic is OTT, over the top platforms. Recently, Union government put these platforms under the ambit of Ministry of Information and Broadcasting. About the OTT platforms are the online platforms curated a range of content and present it on a singular platform. These are also called as online content curated platforms, that is OCCP. How they distinguish from other platforms? By the following features. First one is the ownership, that is they are owned by the individual providers. Second is content, means they are available on device, time and place of our choice. Then third one is the filtering and access control. So as Amazon Prime and then Netflix, so these are the owner of these, and therefore they have access to these access to their content. Then what are the regulatory frameworks? There are three regulatory frameworks presently: IT Act 2000, then Indian Penal Code 1860, and third one is Protection of Child from Sexual Offences Act 2012. Then more in news, the film and audio visual programs made available by online content providers have been brought under the jurisdiction of Ministry of IB, that is Information and Broadcasting, through a notification that amends the Government of India Allocation of Business Rules 1961 using the clause 3 of Article 77 of the Constitution. Then what is the Article 77 third clause of the Constitution? It allows the President to make rules for more convenient transaction of the business of the Government of India. Then notification also about news and current affair content on online platform under the preview. Then earlier the digital media platforms were under Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology. Then next is what is the background of OTT platforms? The center has been mulling means, let's see, mulling, it's thinking. The central government has been thinking the idea of a regulatory board for the OTT platform since 2019. Then in January 2019, the Internet and Mobile Association of India, that is IAMAI, had put out a code called the Code of Best Practices for Online Curated Content Providers. In February 2020, IAMAI also released code for self-regulation of online curated content providers. So this was later not accepted and therefore not that much important. And then it prohibited 5 type of content, that is disrespect the national anthem or national flag. Then second one was child pornography, then religious sentiments, and fourth one was terrorism. However, the proposed self-regulatory mechanism was rejected by the IB ministry. As I was saying that it was not later accepted, so not that much important. Then in October 2020, the Supreme Court bench issued notice to the central government, IB ministry and IAMAI on the petition to regulate OTT platforms. Then self-regulation of media platforms in India. What is the self-regulation? Self-regulating bodies such as Broadcasting Content Complaint Council and the News Broadcasting standard authority. These are some self-regulating bodies. Then what are the benefits of the self-regulation? It promotes standards that advance media credibility. Then second one is develops confidence. Then inculcate professional culture. Then last one is lessen the pressure on the judiciary, as there are lots of petitions. Then what are the issues in the self-regulation? Then consensus is required, and the basis for the self-regulation, which is difficult to arrive in the self-regulation. Then second one is toothless in nature, means there is no board or as such regulation. So absence of independent enforcement mechanism. Then third is self-regulatory codes can be interpreted differently. Means if there are guidelines for the self-regulation, they might be meaningful for they might be meaningful differently. Means किसी के लिए कुछ मतलब हो सकता है और किसी के लिए कुछ मतलब, कोई कहेगा इसका मतलब ये है, कोई कहेगा नहीं इसका मतलब ये है, तो ये भी एक प्रॉब्लम है. देन सेल्फ सेंसरशिप, अ सेल्फ रेगुलेटरी कोड माइट नॉट फैक्टर इन द डाइवर्सिटी ऑफ कंटेंट. मीन्स जब डाइवर्सिटी है तो फिर मतलब वही आ गया ना, सेल्फ रेगुलेटरी इंटरप्रिटेशन. Then what is the need for the regulation of the OTT platforms? Rapid growth of OTT industry. OTT market is set to reach 237.86 billion by final year 25 from 42.50 billion in final year 19. Almost 5 times. Means 42 to 37. Then there is at present no law or autonomous body governing digital content or OTT platforms. Then receipt of the several complaints from the public. Objectionable content is also one concern for the OTT platforms. From the OTT platforms used for spreading fake news and hate speeches. And their other cause is the reach and effect to the children's. Then next is film industry in India has voiced concerns. Means these platforms are replacing general boards like Bollywood and all. For them there is a central board of film certification which regulates them and provides certificates for them, and there is no such regulation for the OTT platforms. So they are film industry in India is voicing against OTT platforms. Then arguments against regulation of the OTT platforms. Then it might lead to the censorship crime, like in the films there are always controversies related to the cuts and related to the contents and all these. Then next is users exercise substantial choice in the content they want to view. This is also one reason for not regulating OTT platforms. Then benefiting small scale content producers, and these platforms are making a regional film available around the country as well as globally. So basically they will be unemployed or they might be get affected by the regulation of these industries. Then vast amount of content, and there is already vast amount of content on these platforms, and censoring of these content might not be feasible or might not be easy. Then what are the way forwards for the regulation of the OTT platforms? A multi stakeholder approach to self regulation can be adopted. Then mechanism for complaints, there might be autonomous organization or a board to hear the complaints of the OTT platforms. Then government can frame guidelines that cover principle laid out in statutes like IT Act 2000, Indian Penal Code 1860. Fourth topic is legalizing betting. Why in Wise News? Recently, Ministry of State for Finance has pitched for legalizing betting in India. About betting, betting is defined as the action of gambling money on the outcome of race, game, or other unpredictable event. Public Gambling Act 1867 is the general law governing gambling in India. There are no specific central laws governing online gambling in India. And some countries like Australia, UK, South Africa, Sri Lanka, and New Zealand also have taken a step in this direction. Then about the regulations or the legislations in India on gambling. Gambling is a generic term while betting is structured agreement. Gambling and betting are state subjects. However, gambling is not defined under the gambling legislations of states. The Indian law distinguishes each game to be as a game of skill and game of chance. The gambling under the gambling legislation does not include horse race, skill, and lotteries. Then fantasy sports betting is legal because of its game of skill. And Sikkim and Nagaland expressly permits online gambling. However, there are states like Telangana which shows zero tolerance towards gambling. Then there are some arguments in favor of legalizing betting, and there are some in against as well. What are in favor? First is legalizing the gambling will contribute to the revenue sources. Then it also recommended by the Supreme Court mandated committee, which was Justice Lodha Committee. It opened that a regulatory framework would enable the government in differentiating betting from match fixing. Then the money earned from betting can be used for augmented infrastructure. Then next is it will help in stopping the illegal activities which were linked to which links to the betting. And then there is it also prevents the people from being subjected to loan sharking. Loan sharking means immediate loan when they engaged in such type of betting. As why it will prevent loan sharking? Because legalizing it, there will be a procedure and there will be a limit on how much money can be spent for betting. Then there is it will empower the agencies to identify and prevent instances of gambling by minors and problem gamblers. Then there are some arguments which goes against the legalizing of betting. First one is not consistent and in conformity for directive principles of state policy. Then second is it may give rise to the criminal activities as it will be legalized and there will be more corruption and unethical activities might increase. It has been proven to result in financial losses. Then the current socio-economic atmosphere in the country and the prevalent social and moral values do not encourage the betting and gambling. So these were the arguments against legalizing the betting. Then there are some way forwards. It will ensure the transparency and state supervision for sure. Then the cap on the maximum amount that can be stacked, it should be there. Then it could be made cashless so that transparency and accountability can be held and there can be improved supervision. Then next is laws should be put in place to control foreign direct investment. Then next topic is capitals for Andhra Pradesh. Andhra Pradesh Decentralization and Inclusive Development of All Regions Bill 2020 was passed, not passed, but proposed Visakhapatnam, Amravati and Kurnool as the executive, legislative and judicial capitals respectively. Here are the three capitals: Visakhapatnam, Amravati and Kurnool of Andhra Pradesh. Then what are the arguments in favor for having three capitals? First one is it was recommended by the all committees as to set up three capitals. Then it will distribute the development between the regions and therefore lead to the decentralized arrangement. Then it will be a planned urbanization. And next is concern over the food security, meaning concern of food security. एक second. Concerns of food security when taking away thousands of acres of fertile land for urbanization. How it is a concern when arguments in favor? Concerns over food security. KCS committee raised concerns of food security when taking away thousands of acres of fertile land for urbanization by developing Amravati as capital in single region. Okay, so concern is because of if there will be a single capital Amravati, then it will lead to the concern of food security as thousands of acres of land from the farmers will be taken away, and therefore it will reduce the fertile land. So that's why it was the concern. Then there is a box example of such arrangements of three capitals was in is currently in South Africa, having Pretoria, Cape Town, and Bloemfontein as three capital. And in India, several examples exist of states having high court in city different from capital. Uttar Pradesh is one, then Madhya Pradesh, Gujarat, and Kerala. Some states also move their legislative assemblies to different city for part of year. For example, Maharashtra, Mumbai is the main capital and it shifts to Nagpur, then Himachal Pradesh, Simla and Dharamsala. Then in Karnataka, Bangalore and Belgaum. Then there are some points for which three capitals are criticized. First one is might hamper coordination. Government arms, especially the bureaucracy and ministers, as there will be a distance between the capitals. So government arms might be scattered. Then it linking the growth of growth centers. Okay, so linking of infrastructure from one to another will be a concern. Then last one is not the only way for decentralization. There are other ways for strengthening the decentralization by the local bodies. We can strengthen local bodies to promote decentralization. Then one is also about environmental impact. Then what is the conclusion? For the three capital idea is to be successful, improved coordination between the legislature and the executive shall be done. Then simultaneously there is a need to strengthen the local bodies. We cannot take granted as three capitals as they will strengthen the decentralization properly. So we still need to strengthen the local bodies. Next is Forest Rights Act. Last topic is Forest Rights Act. Recently, Jammu and Kashmir said that it is in process to implement these rights for the forest dwellers. About Forest Rights Act 2006. It is also called Scheduled Tribes and Other Traditional Forest Dwellers Recognition of Forest Rights Act 2006 or Forest Rights Act 2006, enacted to protect the marginal and tribal communities and other forest dwellers and balance environmental conservation with their right to life and livelihood. Meaning conservation plus their rights and benefit to them from the forest. Then what are the key features of the Forest Rights Act? There are following rights. First one is title right, means ownership to land that is being cultivated by tribals or forest dwellers as on 13 December 2005. Means on 13 December 2005 or before that, the ownership of land will be applicable to them if they held that land before this date, and it will be with the maximum of 4 hectare limit. Then community right like grazing, fishing, accessing water bodies, etc. Then there is to rehabilitation in case of illegal eviction or the forest displacement, subject to the restriction of forest protection. Then next is forest management rights to protect, regenerate or conserve or manage any community forest resource. Then last is right to collect and sell MFP, that is minor forest produce. Then in this row, second one is eligibility to get rights under the act is confined to those who primarily reside in the forest only. Further, either the claimant must be a member of scheduled tribe scheduled in that area or must have been residing in the forest for 75 years. Then Gram Sabha will be the initial authority to pass a resolution for their rights. Then it will be screened and approved approved at the level of subdivision and subsequent at the district level. Then what is the importance of these forest rights? It helps in recognizing the rights that were denied to forest dwelling, scheduled tribes, and other traditional forest dwellers. It will help in the poverty alleviation and inclusive growth. Then it will conserve the forest at the same time. It will help the forest dwelling communities from the forest. Then decentralization, it will provide for democratic decentralization through Gram Sabhas. Then implementation of FRA in left wing extremism affected districts. It will build a relationship of trust and bond between them and the government. Then there are some concerns regarding the implementation of the Forest Rights Act. What are these concerns? First one is little progress in recognizing of right. Only 13% of the 40 million hectare has been demarcated under the FRA by the Environment Ministry. So implementation is one issue. Then second is inadequate efforts to promote coexistence and preservation. Basically implementation issue, efforts are inadequate. Then third one is the instances where plantation by forest agencies are being done on land used by tribal communities and therefore their rights are not protected well. Then relocation in violation of FRAs. People have been denied rights or relocated from the protected areas. Similar concern. Then discrepancies and delays in the process of recognizing claims. There are delays in recognizing claims. Then last is other issues like inadequate financial and administrative support to implement the law. Then also the lack of coordination is also one issue. Then poor or non-performing of district or subdivision level communities. Then compensation delays is one another issue. Then what is the way forward for this? First of all, awareness campaign. Organizing large scale awareness campaign is one solution. Then capacity building to approach the implementation, and coordination with subdivision and district administration, it should be done correctly. Then participation of civil society, there is need to identify NGOs which are working in these areas. Then using technology to strengthen outreach, media platforms and GPS survey maps can be used to reach such areas. And then next is need for reviewing all rejected and pending claims. Then ensuring transparency and accountability will be a good step for uh, implementing the FRAs correctly.